If you. Thank you. Welcome everyone to the March 28th, 2024 Technical Advisory Committee for Sonoma County. We will start as always with introductions, but we'll go in a different direction today.
Elizabeth Tyree, Sonoma County Regional Park.
Rick Scott, City of Countywide.
Under McLaughlin, Sonoma County Public Infrastructure.
Sure, yeah, Chris Bond, SCTA, RCPA.
I'm Garcia, SCTA, RCPA.
Dana Trey, SCTA, RCPA.
Jerry Nichols, SCTA, RCPA.
And I extend City of Petaluma.
Yeah, Mario Landeros for Sebastopol.
Tarina Wilson, City of Santa Rosa.
Derek Montani, City of Cloverdale.
David Burdett, SCTA, RCPA.
Shauna Gauze, SCTA, RCPA.
Larry Zimmer, City of Healdsburg. Second item, public comments. Do we have any public on Zoom that cares to speak?
I'm not seeing any members of the public on Zoom.
All right, approval of meeting minutes. Does anyone have anything to add or change in the minutes from last meeting? Seeing none, passes unanimously. Onward, item number 4, measure M 4.1, invoicing obligation status.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's an informational item. It's in your packet. Try to keep it up to date. Please let us know if you have questions.
All right, 4.2, the maintenance efforts.
So good news is, everybody got in on time this year and everybody is in compliance this year. Woo! So well done. That is very good news. And that means that nobody is having their apportionment share reduced, and everybody is getting an equal, getting their proportional formula share like they are supposed to. So the staff report in the agenda packet is simply asking that the TAC recommend to the board that SCTA is in compliance with the Public Utilities Code that requires the maintenance bill.
Okay. Does anyone have questions? And if not, would someone care to make a motion?
Motion to approve.
And second. Anyone opposed?
It was Mario and Craig.
Thank you.
Did you have a question, Steve? Okay.
Good.
All right.
Anyone opposed? Seeing none, passes unanimously. We don't need a formal vote.
Nope.
Excellent. Item number 5.1, inactive federal obligation status informational item.
Right, so this is an informational item. You get a copy of this every month. I have been updating it on the regular in order to provide you with the most recent updated information, but also to let you know that we are tracking it. So we keep track of what you told us last time in the notes section. So I modify this particular table every month so that you can see exactly what you reported the last time that we asked. So you can see that there are some red cells from folks that I haven't heard from, where the inactive obligations have been on this list for a while. I would request that those red cell jurisdictions go ahead and hit me up after the meeting and let me know what the status of those projects are.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none. There is no 5.2. Item 6, the Safe Streets for All call for projects.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is an item kind of following up from last year. Last year, we did a joint call for projects, regional application for the Safe Streets and Roads for All federal grant program. We were successful in getting $1,060,000 in plan grant funds. They'll be doing some studies in Healdsburg and a countywide speed reduction study, a countywide safe routes to school plan, and some study work on Lakeville Road and Lakeville Highway in City of Petaluma. But we were unsuccessful in getting the approximately 24 million requested for implementation projects. We had a debrief with the USDOT a few months ago, and they gave some good feedback. And one of the things we're trying to do with this application is have a more kind of consistent theme of the types of projects and treatment types we're looking at. Trying to also put in some money for demonstration projects, which could be quick build type projects that could have low cost, easy to implement, and then have some reporting that would go into our supplemental planning work to go with that. And then also looking at, are there some smaller implementation grant projects that we can put in there that are worthwhile? And so we've had some side discussions with City of Santa Rosa and Petaluma and Smart on ideas, and we've had some discussions at the CV PAC meeting at the our public works directors meetings. So right now, what we're trying to do is shoot for the May due date. There's 3 due dates in this year's cycle. 3 of them are for planning and demonstration grants, and 1 of them is for implementation projects. And so we're trying to sync up and go just for the May application. And based on that schedule, we work back and try to figure out, okay, when can we do kind of an informal call for projects like we did last year. So we're shooting to get applications from you all back to us by April 18th. That would give us a chance to pull things together and figure out what makes sense and bring back a list of the applications to you on April 25th. And then spend the couple weeks after that to pull together a grant application. Hopefully we can reuse a lot of content we prepared last year, take it to our board on May 13th, and then submit it to USDOT on May 16th. So we're hopeful that we will do better than we did last year and get some funding for projects this time around. It's a very competitive grant program and a lot of needs statewide and nationwide. So we're hopeful that we'll do better this time, and turn back over to you, Mr. Chair. If there's any questions or discussion.
Any questions? Yes. Welcome, Edie.
I know, rolled in a little. David mentioned that we talked a little bit at the CV PAC about this, and I'm going to mention it and also kind of have a question to follow up on the questions that I had at that meeting. So the city of Roanoke Park was interested in doing a demonstration project, putting together a demonstration project for mini roundabouts, temporary mini roundabouts. And I know that there are other jurisdictions that are also interested in that. So we kind of talked a little bit about possibility of doing, the joint application. So my question is, for the call for projects, do you imagine, David, that we would be putting, at some point, we'll get together with all the jurisdictions and put in one application through this call for projects as a joint application, or will each 3 or however many jurisdictions have their own set of traffic circles and somebody will put it together?
So that's the kind of the approach we're thinking, where we might have a roundabout project from Windsor, one from Roanoke Park, and then we get 3 different submissions, and then we will merge them together into one project as part of our joint application.
Got it.
We kind of did that with our planning funds in the last application, where we had multiple requests and then turned into one project. But I think we're looking for discrete submissions from each jurisdiction at this point, and then we'll figure out how to combine them.
Very good. That helps me a lot. Thanks.
I have some thoughts for Santa Rosa. So there's still a discussion happening between city leadership and TPW on whether or not we want to put BPOC on Safe Streets for All. Seems pretty sure that we probably will. And if that's the case, so we also agree that the coordinated and similar projects needs to happen for us to be more competitive. And it seems like BPOC doesn't fit with a lot of the other projects that jurisdictions have going on. And so I think we are also interested in maybe other projects that could be in line with what other jurisdictions are wanting to do. I think it could be advantageous for us to have some sort of call with jurisdictions who are interested before the call for projects, to just kind of generally talk about what we're interested in. Because if we can all focus on a certain topic and then put our eggs in that basket a little bit more, that might help save us some time.
Yeah,
So I guess I wonder what people think.
I definitely think it'd be good to have maybe an offline brainstorming discussion of the jurisdictions and SCTAs, so we can kind of put our ideas on the table and say, does this make sense?
Yeah. So if City of Santa Rosa does decide to go for BPOC, I'm imagining that might be a separate application, simply because if we're doing a joint, it will need to be consistent, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I know you submitted it separately for the fiscal year 22 application. It wasn't successful.
Right.
But
Yeah,
the one concern we did have in the last cycle was there was a provision that if you had applications from overlapping jurisdictions, USDOT didn't really want to see that. So that was a little bit concerned. I didn't see that guidance in the current NOFO, but I think it's
Mhm.
something to definitely think about, where we don't want to say have an application from Santa Rosa or County of Sonoma competing against a joint SCTA application necessarily, but since this is a specific project with a larger ask, I think they would understand,
mhm,
but
Yeah.
just something to consider.
yeah, okay. I know that discussion is very active, so I'm hoping that I'm the messenger, so I'm hoping I even get an answer soon. And then we can let you know what we're being directed to.
I'm good. And I'm happy to follow up after the meeting and kind of poll the group if we want to have a separate discussion in a week or two. If that's of interest to anyone, just to get brainstorm ideas and come up with some concepts. If people want or are interested. in
Yeah,
that.
sooner rather than later, I think if we're looking at it April 18th, because that's kind of what my follow-up comment was gonna be, is what are people thinking? To see if we have something that could fit in.
Mhm.
And to show my ignorance, what is BPOC?
The
Pedestrian overcrossing.
Oh,
highway
got
one
it, an
over
overcrossing.
The
overcrossing.
one at the junior college.
The bike pit, right?
I can speak to a couple other things that we are potentially interested in. I think temporary roundabouts sounds interesting. That's something that we have discussions about, but there's not super active discussion right now. So we would, I can take that back to Rob and Dan and see what they think. One that Dan Hennessy, our new TBW director, is really interested in is like a pilot program on our high injury network where we would test different treatments at intersections and or crosswalks to narrow turning radius, shorten the distance for pedestrians. So that could be through curb stops, it could be bollards of some sort, it could be paint, whatever it is, and just kind of testing what works better in certain spots so that we can have some evidence to back up us doing more permanent solutions. So high injury network is something that we're really interested in doing something. I don't know if it's Safe Streets for All or if it's another time, but we're interested in that.
Yeah, and just to build on that, Petaluma in our last application had something similar for multiple intersection treatment times that we think could really fit well as a demonstration project. So if Santa Rosa is interested in that too, and Petaluma wants to submit that again, I think that could be a good theme. One thing I didn't know was there is a cap of 10 million for planning and demonstration projects and 25 million for implementation grants. I don't know if there's a little bit of overlap, but if we're assuming we're going to ask for 10 million in demonstration projects, that's probably a maximum of 15 million or so for implementation projects.
So it's a total of 25 and you can do a mix of the two types of grants.
That's my understanding. But it could be 35 million. It could, but we'd have to clarify that.
I mean, I'll just say Petaluma is definitely interested in partnering up on things. We did a pilot traffic circle, got the design, I sent it to Jason Ronan Park, and I think that, the collaboration on doing some of these things would be, it seems like it'd make it more of a powerful type of submittal grant application. You can still do them separately, but I think that, just collectively show that the county overall is working together on.
And if they're successful there, then other jurisdictions can use that data.
Right.
That's very helpful.
Question. Is it limited, are the projects limited to Division 0 LRSP?
No, they're not.
It's okay.
So we're trying to tie back to the Vision Zero Action Plan and your LRSPs, but they don't necessarily need to be in line with them. They could be something outside of them. Because I know Katati, for example, you didn't have a lot of intersections that met the HZIP criteria in your LRSP, but we're
It's 0.
Although I think it has to, if it's demonstration projects, I think they have to they have to directly inform an action plan.
Mhm.
Then you have to, that's why the whole idea of somebody has to take the data and say, oh, now we're gonna change and we're gonna update your vision zero. It's how for these kind of intersections, you do this kind of traffic circle and. So yeah, I think it, but which action plan is the question?
Yeah, is it a supplemental to your LRSPs?
Yeah, it was, for us would be a lot.
Is it supplemental to our Vision Zero action plan? We still need to figure that out, I think.
I mean, what I was imagining is city of Patati, we're just now approaching 50 employees. And so I'm anticipating us triggering the ADA transition plan requirements. So we have.
Don't hire them.
We've never had.
It's hard
I'll
to
put you on that. So I'm just looking for grant funding opportunities for that. And I'm wondering if this would be.
It could fit as a planning and demonstration grant for jobs.
Yeah. Okay.
So you're updating your ADA plan.
We're creating one.
You're creating one, okay, that's the action plan, that's gonna be.
Yeah, I guess the supporting document would be like the federal, the requirement. They have one.
Yeah.
The legislation. Yeah.
I started at the city right after we submitted the last application. Was the action plan for that one, the Vision Zero?
We use the Vision Zero action plan and your LRSPs to say we check the box.
Okay.
So we had a plan. Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's what we did.
Yeah, that's true, and you know, the countywide plan is pretty broad, so I think the two pieces of the countywide plan you want to tie back into are the hydrogen network. And the policies and the Vision Zero action plan, so those are pretty broad at the policy level, so I think there are many connections that can be made there if the project's not right on that kind of network. But as you know, the local safety plans are much more specific, right? So the project is listed out there, so. A few different ways to go, so I think the stronger connection is definitely better, right? It's listed on lists as a direct connection, and so if you have to tie in the broader policies, you know, there's more writing, you know, limited space for that application. That justification. And that's one thing we ran into with our last application. We were limited to 11 pages, and we had very diverse projects, and trying to like create a consistent narrative in that short amount of space was pretty tough.
Again, the process is we're supposed to submit something. SCTA will look to see if it's a theme that, as Chris just pointed out, if you can fit the narrative into the form. Otherwise, they may go individually. If they're going individually, are they going back to the city to apply? Or will SCTA still apply for them if they're individual?
I think we'll do something similar to what we did last year and just kind of try to slim down the applications that fit within our cap. We don't want to necessarily leave someone out if we can avoid it, but I think we would only submit whatever joint applications we're going to do. We're going to do an individual application on behalf of the city. Okay. So if Santa Rosa wants to do the BPOC on their own, they'd be responsible for that application.
Okay. Any other questions? Nothing on the screen. Number 7, countywide active transportation plan prioritization approach. Dana, please approach the bench.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and oh, I cannot share my screen right now, so I'll just talk while we get there. So some of you heard this same information at the CPAC earlier this week, so apologize for that, but I'll give you another bite at the apple. We just kind of a brief update on the overall project for the countywide active transportation plan. We have to date kind of gotten through the existing conditions. Yeah, if you could, thank you. And the initial technical analysis, including the level of traffic stress. We did a first round of public engagement last fall. to help identify locations where people would like to see improvements or have seen barriers. And then we have developed the draft projects, policies and programs, and administrative kind of drafts, and reviewed those with all of the 7 jurisdictions that are updating their plans through the countywide process. And we've also developed draft priorities. We brought kind of a high level list of the draft criteria for prioritization to the CB PAC in January, and then developed a more detailed criteria and talked with each jurisdiction who's updating their plans through this process at technical workshops over the last month or so. Just kind of next steps, we will soon, about middle of next month, start our second round of public engagement. So we are hoping to go out with those draft project lists that are prioritized and get community input on those projects. And that will go into the draft plans. So we wanted to just get your all's feedback on the prioritization criteria. The idea is to use this criteria to put all projects into 3 different tiers, and having projects kind of broken up by 1/3 of the list into each tier for each jurisdiction. So not comparing projects across jurisdictions, but within them, and trying to raise to the top the projects that really meet a lot of the criteria that for various different grant types. And so what we're looking at is safety projects that are along or parallel to a high injury network, or that are listed in a local road safety plan. Equity, we're looking at a variety of different criteria that are used for federal, state, and regional definitions. So kind of covering various different criteria that are used in various different grants. The next criteria is proximity to existing transit, including future smart station in Healdsburg. Looking at a 1/4 mile for pedestrian projects, and that are, a 1/4 mile around all bus stops, and then a 1 mile buffer around the more major transit hubs and smart stations. Proximity to schools and colleges is also a criteria, so a 1/2 mile for walking and 1 mile for biking projects. We have, we're including regional priorities. So if the project is on the MTC Regional Active Transportation Network, it would get a point. And we've also identified a regional network kind of for the countywide plan, which is somewhat a subset of MTC's Regional Active Transportation Network. The next criteria would be high access, low stress. So low stress projects that are in priority geographies. So that's essentially in priority development areas. And we're also looking at projects in adopted community-based transportation plans. And then through this next round of outreach, we will be surveying the community on projects that kind of their top priorities. And if we're seeing projects with a lot of feedback and support, we can, we're talking about adding a point for those projects, which could bump it up into the next higher tier. The way we've developed this is really having all of these criteria, or all of these, pieces of the criteria having equal weighting. And so far in discussions with staff, there hasn't been any feedback that we need to change the weighting on any of it. We did meet with our Citizen Advisory Committee on Monday, and there was some comments around maybe bumping up safety as a criteria. But we are also working with staff to look at those lists, and we've found a few outliers here and there that kind of based on local knowledge that maybe need to be moved up or down, which we can do manually, kind of based on that knowledge. So again, the tier 1 projects are intended to be most aligned with local and regional active transportation goals, and prioritize for direct staff to prioritize for implementation first. So we're really just looking to see if anyone has any clarifications, clarifying questions they have about the prioritization criteria. Are there any considerations missing from the criteria? Or do some of the criteria seem more important than others? So just wanted to get feedback from the group on that.
I have several questions.
Okay, great.
You said that we're not being compared to other agencies.
Correct.
So it is strictly prioritizing the internal projects for the city. So if all of our projects score 2 or 3 as opposed to 8 or whatever the maximum is, it doesn't really change anything, and it's not changing our eligibility for Go Sonoma money or some other funding.
No, we're really just trying to find the top priorities within each jurisdiction to, more direct staff. Like, these are the projects that should, meet the goals that we've identified for the plan, and meet a lot of the eligibility criteria that, projects will be evaluated on for various different grant types. So, no, it's not being compared against different
Because
agencies.
we received from Karen Pierce the same scoring criteria. And our original thought was we would like to change this because, we don't really have a high injury network. We're not on the MTC, whatever that map was, sorry.
Yeah, I think that in Healdsburg, just the Foss Creek and Smart Pathway is on the Regional Active Transportation Network. And so any access to that would be included.
Okay, so we are on that network just along that one north-south corridor and nothing else.
Yeah, that's, I could double check, but that's my recollection.
I guess we'll start with the first one. Any other clarifying questions from the group?
I guess for clarification for me is this doesn't have to do with any Santa Rosa projects since we're not part of the countywide process, right?
That's correct. I think that if at any point we want to do that, we'll have the criteria and can apply it to those projects.
So it would be like if we're applying for some sort of grant funding through SCTA, you would use the same scoring criteria or prioritization?
We'd be using the Go Sonoma scoring criteria that's contained in the Go Sonoma strategic plan for the actual scoring. I think this is just if you or say Petaluma were to finish their plans and you want to incorporate them in the countywide plan, then we could go through the same exercise of helping prioritize them, but it doesn't necessarily determine any eligibility for funding or scoring for funding. It's just a planning exercise.
Okay.
But as Danny mentioned, is trying to help your staff prioritize projects that might score better for funding, but it's not the scoring criteria that we'd be using.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I'll just say safety is the same criteria on across the board, and that just, to me, doesn't seem right, but it seems so obvious. I'm assuming you talked about it, figured it out, so.
Yeah, and I think that's the only piece of comments that we've gotten so far,
Yeah.
is that safety may need to be bumped up. I guess I'll just say that, you know, some other things like, you know, may take into consideration safety to some degree, but yeah, I think that's something that we can consider and, you know, see how that impacts the prioritization, the kind of 3 tiers of buckets.
Yeah, several of them include others. So like the high access, low stress for priority geographies. You said is like PDAs, which would then include existing transit and smart stations and things like that. So some
Yeah.
of them are like.
There's some overlap for
Yeah.
sure.
And the regional and the MTC, you know, in many cases, they're gonna overlap too. So if you're in a PDA within that regional area, which you very well may be, that's 50% of your points roughly for comparing one to the other. And that's where I go back to the concern. If there's funding associated with this, like in the general report, it says, is there a fiscal impact? Yes. Because, you know, there's going to be a bulk of really good projects that could be high safety improvements that are going to score very low. What is a priority geography versus priority development? Sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
Hey, hi, everybody. Yeah, I guess that you're kind of chasing down where I'm at too is I'm wondering how the regional aspect of this. I'm okay with, you know, like local agencies having their list of priorities and the SCTA supporting those, but how would those weigh against a regional program, especially when they're going to be competing for Go Sonoma funds? So there is a financial impact based on that scoring and rating.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what David mentioned earlier is that the projects going for the Go Sonoma funding will use the criteria in the strategic plan. I think that there's a lot of overlap in that criteria with this prioritization. So it's really just to help guide staff.
So to follow up on that, if say Healdsburg were to create our own priority scoring, how does that impact SCTA or anyone else? Because if it would better differentiate our projects in our report to show that this is tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, rather than following some that may not be the best scoring for our area.
I think ideally we would have consistency, but if there are things that Healdsburg, you know, feels strongly about moving around or weighting differently, let's definitely discuss it and see how, you know, see how that changes the 3 buckets for Healdsburg. I think that's, you know, when you look at the projects and if it seems off, then I think that's when we really need to take a closer look at the criteria. But yeah, let's definitely talk through it if there's ideas you have about changing that for Healdsburg.
Okay. And what is a priority geography versus a prior PDA?
Let me actually take a look at all right, stop sharing so I can take a look
So
at
like
this.
if a city doesn't have a PDA, are they going to can they score a point in that category?
I believe it may just be referring to PDAs and the community-based transportation plans, which I know Healdsburg, there were only 3 bike ped projects that had not been implemented from the community-based transportation plan. Let me just take a quick look at the memo, see if I could figure that out.
That's okay. We can follow up if
Okay.
others don't care.
Dana, does that also include the MTC priority production areas?
No, we were just looking, I'm seeing now. just looking at the priority development areas.
Anyone else have comments, questions? Yeah, what you need? Oh,
I've got
go ahead,
one
Craig.
observation, Larry. I think it's, well, we've run in for Katati, we've run into the instance where there might be something good for the region or the community, like a sidewalk pathway connecting, pedestrian way. And there's an upwelling of local, protest against it. So how do we reconcile those? It seems like this criteria is assuming that everybody's singing kumbaya together for these projects. And there's a dichotomy going on that we'd have to overcome. It's like, if you have negative public comment on a really good, safe project, how do we reconcile that? I would imagine the county might have something like that going on as well, because they have a lot of rural areas. And they don't want to see anything change necessarily. And all of what we're talking about is change, right? And building pathways and sidewalks. Like sidewalks on a certain part of our town is a bad word. It's like, it's urbanization. So maybe just rhetorical questions, something to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely good to think about. And I think, yeah,
You've got the greater good versus
Right.
like local interests.
Yeah. and that may, require more community engagement to really come up with something that
Yeah.
residents are happy with.
So Craig, do you want to do a mini roundabout pilot as part of our Safe Streets for All grant?
Get in there, shit.
Class 4 bike lane alongside it too. All right, you get what you need, Dana?
Yeah, thank you all.
I second Ken's thoughts on, it seems like safety
Safety.
probably should score a little higher, but whatever.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Onward, item 8, the SCTA RCPA meeting on April 8th. Do we have an agenda to look at?
I guess this computer is not connected to the SharePoint. No. All right, give me a second, y'all. No, I'll go to the next item and then return back to this one while I find it.
Next time we adjourn, isn't
Oh, no, we've got discussion. So that's great.
Yes. Item number 9, roundtable discussion and informational items. Did I miss something? Okay.
Yep.
Anyone want to share about grants being pursued?
Mr. Chair, I think Chris has a couple slides you want to share on the PC.
Oh, please.
Yeah, I can provide an update on the Priority Conservation Area Grant Program, and I know I did provide information on this at the CDPAC on Tuesday, so I'll run through it pretty quickly, but let me go ahead and bring that up just so everyone is aware that that's open and what the call is.
Okay, never mind.
Okay.
But I'll find it.
So, the Priority Conservation Area Grant Program is open right now, and the intent of this program really is to strengthen connections to priority conservation areas, which are focused on protecting agricultural lands, open spaces, natural areas, and also urban greening areas as part of this recent iteration. So MDC's released the guidelines for the program in March. So there'll be 2 rounds of funding to fund connections for projects that are connecting to the PCAs. And I'll just run through a few of the high points that are included in that guidance. And if you want to know more, please dig in to the actual document. But this current round of guidance is looking for projects within or with a strong connection to PCAs and that are regionally significant. So providing regional connections to those types of areas. There are 4 different types of projects that they're looking for this time around, including protection, restoration, enhancement of natural resources, open space and ag land protection. One thing that has been funded through this program in the past a lot are pedestrian and bicycle facilities, including trails, pathways, on-road connections, bridges, lighting and safety, projects like that. A new category is urban greening, so looking at protecting and enhancing green spaces, improving community health, and providing stormwater improvements. Another new category is visual enhancement, so constructing things like turnouts, overlooks, and viewing areas for these open spaces and natural lands. Go ahead and get to where I can advance this. So here's an overview of the grant program. There'll be 2 phases, each of around $8 million. So the project range in costs is a minimum of 200,000 up to around $1 million for project submissions. And MPC is looking at funding at least 1 project per county, with at least 50% of the funding targeting the North Bay, at least as part of phase 1. And they're looking for relatively ready to go projects that could be constructed within 2 or 3 years of submission. So there's a lot of information available now on where priority conservation areas are. Here's a screenshot of the MPC map viewer that shows the location of priority conservation areas in Sonoma County. So the blue hatched areas are the PCAs in Sonoma. So again, projects that connect to these PCAs are eligible for grant funding. So, and Adam on the team is very familiar with the PCAs and the mapping. So if you have any questions about this, please reach out to Adam and myself, and we can get you the link to the maps and additional information. So, and I believe the second round of funding will be looking at potentially new PCAs as well. So here's a list of projects that have been funded in the past. So 3 of these are roadway or bike ped projects, including Bodega Highway Roadway Preservation Project, Crocker Bridge Bike Ped Passage Project, and a bridge on the Joe Rodota Trail. And there's also a planning project looking at open space preservation using the urban footprint tool a number of years ago. So just a look at what was funded in the past. And I believe these slides are in the agenda packet as well. Here's a look at the schedule. So the guidance was released this month. MTC is actually looking for letters of interest before they invite folks to submit full applications. So, so hopefully that makes the process easier. You don't have to have everything together. So you can start the discussion with MTC first before submitting a full application in June. They're looking for full proposals in August and are planning on taking the final recommended list of projects for phase 1 in November and hoping to get work started in December of this year. So here's a link to the PCA grant page. There's a lot more information, including the guidance, links to maps and everything here. I just wanted to get this on everyone's radar. So if you need any help or have any questions, let us know. And we'd like to track who's applying as well. So let us know if you have any.
So my group doesn't, like in transportation, doesn't have a project off the top of our head, but Parks and Creeks have a couple projects where there is a transportation component. So we've already talked with Parks a little bit. They're interested. We're going to talk to Creeks. But my question was on the mapping. If you could go back to that slide. Yeah. So I pulled up the map, and so on my contacts. Under eligible PCA overview, there's climate adaptation, natural land, working land, urban greening. One of the projects that Parks was interested in was the Southeast Greenway. We have to do a master planning process. Yeah. And it's not on any of the things that you have identified right now, but when you're on that second criteria, it is under climate adaptation, working land, and urban greening. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming that still means that project would have a good standing.
So there are 2 rounds, right? So the first round of funding is focused on these blue existing PDA areas. Okay. The second phase will consider new PCAs. So, but since there is that letter of interest process, the investment in time to throw it out there as part of phase one is probably worth getting in the mix, right?
Okay.
So.
So I see that eligible PCA overview means these sites are potentially eligible.
For that
to
next
be a
round.
PCA. Okay, that makes
And
sense.
that this existing PCA is focused on that first round.
Okay,
But I would encourage you to get the conversation started early with
Yeah.
MPC.
Yeah.
Get that letter in and talk through next steps.
okay, all right.
Creating a PCA is similar to creating a PDA. There's a process and
Yeah, it's nominating, nominating an area, making sure it lines up with the, eligible areas. And I don't have a live link to this, but if you click on that eligible PCA overview layer on the map, most of Sonoma County is covered. So you're probably covered under one of the criteria, including the climate adaptation, natural lands, working lands, and urban greening opened up a lot of area in Sonoma County. So, yeah, I can get more information on.
no, I can find it on there.
Yeah.
It's a new term to me. I wasn't aware that this was out there, so.
But yeah, there's a nomination process and application working with MTC to get it identified. So similar. Probably less work than a PCA or a PDA.
PDA,
Yeah, but yeah, there's still a process to get those on.
PCAs were funded through ODAG too, so I mean, we've been doing this for a while. Yeah.
One thing I will share, I shared in the Countywide bike group on Tuesday. Regional Parks is looking into opportunities for connecting with application for this. Speaking to Healdsburg, Russian River is the corridor is a PCA identified, but in yes, most areas. Yeah, it's a PCA.
Any other questions for Chris? Seeing none online. That is both of these two bullet points under 9A, 9B. Any comments from anyone on the bid environment? And we have an item here, new rules for Buy America posted to Federal Register for comment.
Right.
I believe that is just for construction materials. There was a waiver for construction materials for like the last year and a half or so, but now that waiver is going away. So any types of construction materials that have to be sourced in the US.
But it's open to comment under the Federal Register, so please feel free to provide comment if that is something you wish to do. The other item there, Mr. Chair, is the DVE training available. I was able to participate in the DVE training earlier this week on their new system of how to search for DVEs, and they're breaking up the whole DVE process into smaller chunks of training. So I highly recommend, if you have not had this training in a while, it's really good as a refresher. And the save the date information is in, and the registration information is in the flyer that I've attached.
Thank you.
Everybody knows what DVE is, of course, Spanish business enterprise.
And so they're online a couple of hours each.
This last one was about a half an hour. It was
Oh, really?
really very brief. It was worth doing. So. highly recommend.
Looks like some of the other sessions are a little longer. The initial sessions are short.
Thanks. Any other business comments, announcements? Steve,
Yeah, well, I feel like we're gonna have to start buying futures in asphalt because we just opened a couple bids here recently, and AC prices are extremely high comparative to the last few years. Hunter, remind me, we got what, $170 a ton for about, I don't know, a little less than 30,000 tons in the latest project. So
Yeah,
and we just advertised the pavement preservation program where we have not quite 50,000 tons in it. So hopefully we're a little bit better than that, but I don't know how everybody else is doing, but you know, we kind of expected it with all the friction in the Middle East and all that going on with the transportation stuff, and certainly the bridge collapse is not going to help that. Not that any of us are getting our oil from there, but I don't know. Seems like there's always an opportunity from suppliers to find a reason to increase their prices.
Yeah, I haven't had anything go out recently, so no new numbers for me.
I'm curious what Roanoke bid
I
opening
know
was.
too, it's happening now. Southwest Complete Streets, which has announced,
A fair amount of paving.
yeah. So, yeah, 2:00.
Well, if you get an email, you let us. know.
Yeah, I know.
Anything else, Steve?
No, that's it. Just get ready for it, I guess.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, I have a quick update on the TOC policy, the transit oriented communities. policy.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
So, I can actually share the updated schedule, which includes how it ties into OBAD 4. So let me go ahead and get that up. So you're all aware of that. So just to give a really brief overview on what the TOC policy is. So this is a requirement coming through MTC that'll be looking at housing and commercial office densities around transit stations, specifically smart stations in Sonoma County. And it'll be tied to OBAC funding. So here's a look at the timeline for OBAG and the timeline for meeting TOC requirements. So there's a pretty lengthy draft TOC policy document out. It's about 75 to 100 pages long. So MDC is working on updating that based on feedback they've received. And they've actually talked to MTC staff this week, and they've been having one-on-one meetings with local staff here in Sonoma County. I'm wondering if any of you were involved. It was probably the planners that were involved in meeting with MTC on TOC policy compliance. And they're basically trying to get a read on what types of support each jurisdiction will need to meet the policies and densities and zoning to meet those policy requirements. So there's a little bit of progress happening there. MDC will be taking also feedback from that process to update the final guidance. They're also developing a tool that'll allow jurisdictions to basically look at the areas around smart stations and figure out what current densities are and see what the gaps are, and also help with submission of compliance documentation. So that should be out within the next 2 to 3 months or so. So all of this information is also going to the planners as well. So we just wanted to keep you in the loop. And yeah, so there's a lot of work ongoing. I also have a commitment from the MPC lead on this to be at the next TAC meeting to provide a presentation on the TOC policy, what's happening, and field questions. Because there's been quite a bit of outreach on the planning side, but not a lot on the engineering and public works side. So we want to make sure that's happening. And so you have a chance to kind of see the detail and raise issues, right, from the non-planning side. Since there's going to be some sort of box or something in the OBAG call that's going to be pointing to the TOC policy. So want to make sure that you're involved early. The final deadline for demonstrating compliance is December of 2026. So that's a little ways away, but it'll be here pretty soon. MTC has also been stating that they're trying to find ways to make sure there's flexibility in the program and allowing for partial compliance. So if you're not able to get all the way there, but can show positive movement towards that, to make sure that's considered as well. So there are ongoing discussions around this. They recognize that there's a lot of work that needs to be done in some areas to kind of get to the point where you can check that box. So just wanted to provide a little bit of a teaser, and Gillian Adams from MTC will be here next month to provide a presentation, field question. So it may be worth checking in with your planning folks to see kind of where they're at and see if they have any questions and, they've talked to Gillian before, but they're certainly invited to be at that meeting as well. So, yeah, I just wanted to provide an update and let you know this is happening. And yeah, please come with questions for the next meeting. I've been digging into the document too, so you can shoot questions to me as well, and I can write them down or try and provide answers as well for them. Yeah, that's the update for this month, more next month.
Thanks, Chris. And I assume this is because I brought this question up because I heard from our planners, we're never going to meet the density requirement. And if we can't sign off on the TOC, then what does that mean for funding? And if Healdsburg can't, can Sonoma, can Cotati, I don't know, other than Santa Rosa, maybe Petaluma meeting the density requirements. And so if that means a whole area isn't going to get funding, what are we doing to try to change that? And it sounds like things are in the works so that a partial check or some other method, but just to kind of give a little background of why we're hearing about this, it was because it was starting to worry me and just wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page and things were moving.
Yeah, and MPC's totally aware, so they're trying to figure out ways to provide technical assistance as well, through a bench or, funding to get consultant support to help examine what's going on in Healdsburg or Cloverdale or other places, see what needs to happen. So, yeah. So more to come. We're happy on the SCTA side to help out where we can too.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that update.
Mr. Chair, as you mentioned, this is going to start impacting the funds in the future. We're kind of building our schedule around the next SCA funding program, cycle 2, to go around when we're going to have to do the programming for the 2026 STIP in the fall of 2025 and OBAG 4 in 2026. And so this policy is going to be more and more important as we move closer to that timeline, because we're anticipating doing a call for projects like we did back in 2021, sometime summer 2025. So this is going to come up very quickly.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Was there an update on the, so there was that 29 million of additional funding, and I think it was going to the board, but then I think we were waiting on to see if Santa Rosa got funded for the application. Do we have an update on that?
Unfortunately, Santa Rosa wasn't awarded their funding, so we're taking the scenario that didn't have that to our board on the 8th for approval.
Okay, thank you.
So Drew should be posting the board packet, I think, on Friday, so we should see that shortly.
And then after that, we'll get some kind of schedule on how that funding rolls out.
Yeah, we'll work with all of you. For those receiving Measure M funds, we'll have to do cooperative agreements, and for those receiving Regional Measure 3 funds, which is the transit operators, they'll have to be working with MPC on that funding.
Okay, I think we have a question online. Ms. Smart.
Some of the kids at the school up north call me Miss Train Station, so. Back to the TOC policy, Larry, we've been told it will impact the bridge toll allocation request for the smart extension to Healdsburg that we were hoping to do in the next 6 months.
Who's in favor of getting rid of the TOC?
I mean, it's not just about OBAG or the many pots of money MTC controls on the roadside. It's going to be the extensions too. Even though we're not in Plan Bay area yet.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough if things go the way they're going for the small rural cities to get the same level of funding that they probably should proportionally. But, all right, any other comments, questions? Oh, that's right. Finish that. Drew, you have the board agenda you want to bring up or anything we should share?
Just a minute.
Just about to slam that gavel.
All right, so as David just said, this will be posted on our website tomorrow because Monday's a holiday. But I will have the meeting announcement sent on Monday. So if you want to preview, you have the weekend reading, but the email will be out next week. So as Dana has up on the screen for everyone, the April SCTA, RCPA Board of Directors agenda. As you can see, appropriation limit, regional measure 3 for the Marin Sonoma narrow segment C2. Resource agency mitigation, monitoring and reporting allocation request. The 2010-11 Proposition 1B state and local partnership program exchange. Measure and maintenance of effort compliance that was discussed earlier. There's countywide greenhouse gas dashboard update. The SCTA funding program cycle 1 augmentation recommendations, strategic visioning and organizational alignment, and then a legislative update. Got an ad hoc report out, and then the coordinated claim, which will be finished by the end of today. And then the rest on reports and announcements as per usual. Any
Okay.
questions?
Thank you.
It'll be a great novel this weekend for all y'all.
All right. If there's nothing else, we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone. See you in a month. Oh, what's the holiday Monday?
That's the office.
Okay.
We don't get-
April
Or
Fool's Day.
April Fools if you want.
Yeah.
We don't get.
I think April Fool's Day was the holiday.